Hey there guys, I am the Six Machine and welcome back to another Warhammer video. We are back again with the next in our unit review and overview series, and once again we are back with another Dark Angels unit, this one being not only one of the best units in the Dark Angels roster, but genuinely one that has quite a good case for being one of the most useful units in the entire game. Today we are of course going to be talking about the Ravenwing Apothecary. Now, yes, we all know that apothecaries in general are absolutely fantastic in marine lists, being unbelievably strong force multipliers, but the Ravenwing one in particular stands out as being heads and shoulders above most of the competition out there, and we are going to find out why. As always, we'll be looking at the stat line and then his abilities, defenses, and his damage output, and then discussing why, because this isn't a question of if, this is a question of why you should be bringing him in your lists. At 100 points, the Ravenwing Apothecary is definitely on the pricier side of things, coming in a full 20 points more than even a Primaris Apothecary, but his stat line for that price definitely puts him up as a winner in my book, coming in with a 14-inch move, weapon and ballistic skill of 3+, strength 4, toughness 5, a really decent 5 wounds, 3 attacks, and a 3-up save. He is essentially a mini character in his own right, and having those 5 toughness 5 wounds protected by a 3-up save will really boost his survivability. Not to mention the fact that he is of course a character, and so as he's moving up the board, he will pretty much 100% of the time be protected by the very same squad that he is buffing and healing. So he is going to be a really tough cookie for your enemy to put down with any kind of efficiency. As a Dark Angel, he of course comes with Grim Resolve, which could help if he's staying still, but as you would expect from a character on a bike, if this guy is staying still, then you're not really using him to his full potential. But still, in the event that he does get stuck in an ongoing combat with the squad he's with, he will be hitting on 2s instead of 3s, so it's worth remembering. The real meat of being a Dark Angel is the ever wonderful Ravenwing keyword that he has, that not only unlocks the game-changing ability of Jink, allowing him to gain a 5-up invulnerable save against shooting attacks unless he stays still, and if he advances, getting that boosted to an even better 4-up, so in the unlikely event he is caught out in the open and can't get his Lookout Sir benefits, just know that he effectively has an Iron Halo against shooting attacks as well to help keep him alive that little bit longer. And of course, being a Ravenwing unit, that also unlocks the Speed of the Raven part of the Sons of the Lion Super Doctrine ability, giving your Ravenwing Apothecary not only an additional 3 inches of movement in the Devastator Doctrine, but allowing him the ability to fire his weapons even after he's advanced. Now, the second part won't be that important as his weapons are assault anyway, as we will see in a bit, but that extra 3 inches of movement is incredibly useful. Not only does it mean if he's with a squad of Ravenwing bikers, they will all be moving up 17 inches in turn 1, but it also means that if you don't get turn 1 and another squad of yours gets targeted and loses a few models, you can potentially choose to move him away from the squad he deployed near and charge him 17 inches across the battlefield to get to your injured squad and instead heal them. It means he is unbelievably mobile and is able to zip around the board incredibly fast to give his buffs and his healing abilities to whichever unit of yours is most in need, unlike other foot apothecaries which are generally somewhat stuck with whatever squad they initially deploy near. Like other bike units, he has the Turbo Boost ability, meaning he can just add 6 inches to his move when he advances instead of rolling, so if you do want to get to another friendly squad, or just want to move up your Ravenwing blob as far as possible, or you just want to get that 4-up invulnerable save, your Apothecary can be moving a blistering 23 inches in turn 1, which is pretty much approaching Eldar speeds, if not going faster than Eldar speeds. As we always mention, he does naturally come with the Angels of Death rule, and They Shall Know No Fear being irrelevant as he's a single model, and Bolter Discipline being equally pointless as he has no bolter weaponry except his bolt pistol. Shock Assault is again only of somewhat negligible benefit since the Apothecary has no melee weapon of note, so that extra attack is, I mean, let's be honest, probably not going to do very much at all. And then finally, Combat Doctrines, which as we've seen, makes a big difference for him in the Devastator Doctrine thanks to Speed of the Raven. But it also makes his weapons a bit scarier in Tactical thanks to the extra pip of AP. And to be fair, even in the Assault Doctrine, giving his 4 attacks on the charge an extra -1 AP does make them that tiny little bit scarier. But in general though, Devastator is where you want to be with this guy. He comes with a special command squad rule as well, which means that for every unit of Black Knights in your army, you can bring a Ravenwing Apothecary unit without taking up a battlefield role slot, which is actually quite useful as he is an elite choice. So if you want to bring a few units of Black Knights as well as an Apothecary and say a champion or an ancient, you can do that without running out of those precious elite slots in your army. He does also, in the twist that always annoys me, have the Inner Circle keyword, and before you get excited, no, he cannot benefit from it. Inner Circle only affects infantry, which I totally get, from a Codex power perspective. Having bikers that could never be wounded on anything less than a 4+ would be completely broken, to be honest. So yes, it's a cool ability and it's there for fluff reasons. Being a part of the second company and the Ravenwing, he is technically in a circle, but functionally it doesn't have any impact on his profile. Just remember, if you are playing against Dark Angels and someone tries to say that your las cannons or your assault cannons are only wounding him on 4s, they're not, they're wounding him on 3s. Finally, when it comes to his abilities, he has the Apothecary specific rules of the Narthisium, providing a 3-inch aura, not 6 inches anymore, that was FAQ'd, which provides a 6 up to ignore wounds for any friendly Dark Angels infantry or biker models. This is obviously a really nice little bonus, making your already durable bikers with toughness 5, 3 wounds, 3 up armor, and then either a 5 or a 4 up invulnerable save have that additional layer of protection will really help them to survive the barrage of firepower which will almost certainly be directed towards them. And he also comes with the Combat Restoratives rule, which is really where the fun begins. So this allows you, at the end of your movement phase, to choose a friendly Dark Angels infantry or biker unit within 3 inches, and one model can restore up to D3 wounds. So if your squad of Black Knights have lost a couple of wounds due to enemy fire, you can bring them back up to full strength and really annoy your opponent who's just had to get through a toughness 5 4 up invulnerable save with a 6 up shrug after it profile to get some damage through. It can only be used once per turn, but it really does help to keep your squads alive that much longer. And like I said, if your Black Knights have been left untouched, but another squad of bikers 15 inches away has been targeted and lost some wounds, with the Ravenwing Apothecary, you can move him, and then as this ability is done at the end of the movement phase, he can just move over and heal them as well. So his mobility is a really big force multiplier in my opinion. Now, of course, while this is all very well and good and powerful, it isn't the real reason that apothecaries are so strong right now. The real reason is, of course, the Chief Apothecary upgrade. And for a now increased, but still really quite cheap 35 points all things considered, you can bump up your Ravenwing Apothecary to become a Chief Apothecary, and this really is where the fun does begin. Not only can, for that 35 points, your Apothecary do his Combat Restoratives twice instead of once, so potentially healing up 2 separate squads of Black Knights within range to keep 2 units going at full strength for much longer, which, to be honest, alone I think is almost worth that 35 points. After a couple of turns of healing your bikers back up, you will have probably made your points back, but even more importantly, it unlocks access to the unbelievably powerful warlord trait, Selfless Healer. This changes the combat restoratives to a flat 3 instead of D3. So if you have those 2 squad of Black Knights with 1 in each squad down to 1 wound, you know for certain that they will both be back up to full wounds, and you don't have to run the risk of rolling a 1 or a 2 on that d3 and only bringing one back up to 2 wounds, which is honestly brilliant in itself as a warlord trait. But it gets even better as the warlord trait also lets you do the combat revival stratagem for no command points. And whilst we're on the subject of stratagems, even though we haven't covered the weapons on this guy yet, we may as well look at this because the combat revival stratagem is insane. This lets you choose a friendly infantry or biker unit within 3 inches, which is not at full strength, and you can bring a model back with full wounds. You just straight up bring an entire model back at full wounds. So your enemy spends all that time and firepower killing a toughness 5, 3 wound, 4 up invulnerable save with a 6 up shrug, and then does another 2 wounds to another biker in the squad. You can completely negate that entire amount of damage. You heal up the biker on 1 wound, automatically getting 3 wounds back to bring him back up to full, and then by doing combat revival, for free remember, you just get another biker back. And each Black Knight is 45 points. So for a 3 wound model, with some very basic napkin math, your Ravenwing Apothecary has brought back a full 45 point model, and 2 wounds from a 3 point model, so say 30 points, that's pretty much 75 points worth of Black Knight your Apothecary has saved, and all it cost you was a 135 point Chief Apothecary. You do that twice, and you've more than made back your points with him. It's unbelievably strong, even with the point increase, and whilst it's great on things like Black Knights, which you will be moving this guy up with, if your squad of, say, Deathwing Knights is taking a beating, as I said, with his maneuverability, you can easily just scoot this guy over to your Deathwing Knights and do the exact same thing for them, bringing back an entire Deathwing Knight and healing one back up to full health. Some of the other stratagems worth noting with the Ravenwing Apothecary are Hero of the Chapter, which allows you to select a Space Marine character and generate a Warlord trait for them. This allows you to take the mind-blowingly good Selfless Healer for 1 command point and still let your actual Warlord take another trait, which will help to benefit them and the rest of your army. So you can effectively consider the tax for being able to do this, let's be honest, nonsense amount of healing on your Ravenwing Apothecary to be a 35 point cost and 1 command point. And to be honest, that is still absolutely cheap as chips, and you should probably do it every single game. The Hunt is another which I think has some benefit on your Ravenwing Apothecary, allowing you to do a move before the first battle round. So if you set him up with a squad, but then your enemy deployment has left another unit looking like it's going to be taking a lot of fire, you can, in a pinch, use this to move him over their way a bit to not only give them the 6 up shrug, but also be able to use his heal and combat revival in your turn to bring any models that were killed back. It is a bit pricey at 2 CP, but if you have unfortunately done some poor deployment, or your enemy seems to be massively gunning for a unit you weren't expecting them to, it could come in handy just to keep that particular squad alive a little bit longer. He can also make great use of Full Throttle, which is used in the movement phase and allows your Ravenwing Apothecary to essentially move again after he's advanced. So if you have a unit really far away that's in desperate need of support and healing, by sacrificing your shooting and ability to charge, your Apothecary can get a potential 45-inch move. 17-inch base in the Devastator Doctrine, plus 6 for advancing, and then an extra 12 inches with this stratagem to get to pretty much any unit on the board to heal them up. Again, you give up your charging and your shooting, but if you need to heal that key unit up and keep it alive, this could really save your skin. But on the topic of him giving up his shooting, what kind of firepower does the Ravenwing Apothecary bring? Normally, when you look at Marine Apothecaries, they have a token bolt pistol, or for Primaris, the Absolver bolt pistol, which is better, but still not exactly fantastic. The Ravenwing Apothecary, though, he has the Plasma Talon. Now, yes, I know he does actually come standard with the grenade launcher, but I'll be honest, I really don't see much use for it. It's essentially just some frag or crack grenades, and for absolutely free, I would honestly always take the Plasma Talon every single time. The Plasma Talon itself is an 18-inch range, Assault 2, Strength 7, -3 AP, 1 damage gun, which can be overcharged to Strength 8 and 2 damage. So essentially your Ravenwing Apothecary, in addition to having that extra toughness and mobility over a regular Apothecary, also has much better shooting with essentially 2 plasma shots. And whilst I'd recommend not overcharging, seeing as he does get destroyed outright if he rolls a 1, I still think that adding an extra 2 strength 7 shots to the mix is a really potent little addition for his 100 points and could very easily net you an extra marine dead from some decent rolling. He is also a character, so you could potentially get some rerolls from, say, Samael on him, and if that was the case, you could spend 2 CP for weapons from the Dark Age to get 2 3 damage shots from him, giving you the possibility of just straight up deleting 2 aggressors or inceptors. But honestly, I tend to consider his Plasma Talons just a very nice extra little cherry on top of his already unbelievably good stat line and set of abilities. So that is the Ravenwing Apothecary. I do genuinely think he is by quite a long way the best Space Marine Apothecary option in the entire game. He brings you all of the benefits and abilities of an Apothecary, but it's on such a durable platform with more wounds, higher toughness, a very easy to access invulnerable save, as well as the ability to get pretty much anywhere on the board to bring his heals and revive your key units. He doesn't have to just babysit one particular unit. He can be much more of a wide-ranging force multiplier to several squads in your army. Yes, he is more expensive than a regular or even a Primaris Apothecary, and making him a Chief Apothecary now does add an extra 35 points on top of his cost, but do I think that 135 points is cheap for what he brings to the table? Yes, I really do. I still do think it is an absolute steal, and I would bring him every single game. But what do you think of the Ravenwing Apothecary? Do you think he is the best Apothecary in the game right now? And do you think that 35 point cost to make him a Chief Apothecary is worth it? Or has Chapter Approved made that slightly less viable in your opinion? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me. But until next time, I will catch you later, guys.